It was a really fun interview. So I'm looking forward to doing another one when you guys are ready.
Yeah, awesome, Warren. Thanks for coming on. It was great talking. Yeah, I love the background shot and the rooster. I was watching it back, so I just like swatting flies from your face. So, but yeah, looking forward to a future one in a couple months, maybe.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. We're working on some stuff in Indonesia while I'm over here. I'm probably going to head back to Vietnam next month. There's a trip to Singapore planned as well. Obviously, when things get a little bit easier to kind of travel. But yeah, we're kind of exploring some partners in Indonesia, and well, Vietnam's kind of already set. But while I'm here in Indonesia, we're speaking to some banking partners to try and basically replicate the kind of PSP that we're building over in Vietnam with PVcomBank. We're looking to get another banking partner here so that we can basically deploy. So I think I can go into detail. I think we'll give a couple of minutes for people to join. So I did briefly read through the messages. I'm sorry, guys. I don't actually understand the major concern. Whining about the stock price is not going to make it move, right? I'm so used to 25% swings daily. The stock price to me is meaningless. It's all about the quality of the project. I mean, if you guys want a company that's only focused on stock price, then by all means go and find that company. But we're here building something truly special. I mean, I'm 100% focused on building out this ecosystem. If you just look at things we've achieved, we've basically got a letter from the SEC that said, this stable coin is good to go at your own risk. That's about as high as SEC approval that you can get. We've basically displayed the whole business model. They've come back and said, okay, they've asked us enough questions. They haven't said don't do it or anything. We've consulted multiple legal counsel to make sure everything's a-okay. So we're incredibly proud of what we've managed to do. We've basically got an over-collateralized stable coin. We've got a banking relationship. We're working with a few of the top 20 blockchain network protocols. We've got several ecosystem partners from Europe and mainland China, including North America. We've got 2 trust partners. The project is on its way. We released a beta to you guys, which was built by our friend Stably, to basically just ramp up the development. Once we get the Vietnam side going, that's when we can start to get everything kind of ironed out, and we've got real use case with the remittance and payments in Vietnam. We've got incredible things coming out of Vietnam. Like I did explain them on the Slap the Ask, so I won't go into more detail. If you guys want any more info into how that Vietnamese banking partnership looks, you guys can check out the Slap the Ask podcast. But I don't understand the main issue. I've got a couple of guys here whining about a stock price when we've got literally a real use case of an SEC approved stablecoin. And then we've got ecosystem partners. I just don't understand the issue, if I'm honest. So I honestly, whining in the group is not going to do anything. All you're going to do is probably put some potentially, people off either the project or the company, and then it's just going to make your price go down even more. I mean, I honestly, my job is just to focus on USDV, right? I'm not really privy to a lot of information in USDV. To be honest, I don't really care. I'm all about providing results, right? For the past 10, 15 years, I've only focused on results driven. A lot of clients I have, I don't get paid until results are shown. And it's the same with USDV, Tan's literally only focused on making sure Vemanti is a solid company with good reports. So he's always kind of stretched thin. He has give USDV a lot of time, which I'm extremely thankful for. And he's got some, I think that's my alarm to the call going on. Sorry, guys. So yeah, Tan's give us a lot of attention, which I'm really grateful for. So honestly, the whining, it doesn't really achieve anything, basically. The white paper, a lot of you are kind of really focused on the white paper like it's some sort of major deadline. It's literally just a document. everything that we've explained to you over the couple of weeks is, explained in the white paper. The main purpose of the white paper is to be given to politicians, the PVcomBank guys. I mean, we've got so many different PPTs that, I mean, I've shared, I think, a few of them with some of you guys. Some of them might have been, released. I mean, especially one months ago, which was probably explains more in detail about part of the USDV fintech infrastructure than the white paper. To be honest, like, I don't understand why a lot of you guys are really focused on it, because, as I've already explained, it's literally just a document. If you listen to the calls that we've scheduled and we've asked, people have asked questions and stuff, you've probably got 10 times more information there. But there's a big difference between, other people releasing information from the calls and then us releasing information ourselves. We have to fill like 2 different forms out. We have to get 2 different legal counsel to review it. Then the board of Vemanti has to approve it, and then we have to publish it, which takes like, 4 or 5 days to do it. It also costs, quite a bit of money to push a lot of PR out. So when there was some complaints about saying that there is no PR, there's no journalists or something, we've spoken to a few journalists about how to construct the narrative. We don't understand how some crazy projects can get, some Yahoo Finance journalist to make like a 1,000-word article on it, but then, the amazing stuff that we're doing just kind of gets pushed to the side. What we don't want to do is get into the habit of just paying for useless PR, right? One of the extremely large network protocols that we're working with now, they said they want to avoid making a PR announcement of a PR announcement to announce a PR announcement, which I'm totally in 100% agreement with. That doesn't really make a lot of sense, and especially not getting pulled into the cycle of just paying for PR, right? We want this to be organic. So we've spoken to a few journalists and just asked, like, how do we make this story more attractive? We've been given some heads up. We've been given some advice, which is, great. I mean, that's what you guys want. You guys want more PR and more eyes on the project, and we want the exact same. So all I asked was, if you guys want if you guys want to introduce us, you want to share some, Vemanti news on Twitter to some of your favorite KOLs or influencers, like, all I'm saying is I'm more than happy to make some time to speak to them. I don't see how that is a weakness, to be honest. Like, I'm doing everything I can here, mostly on the development side. We've got a new, like a CMO, I guess, or like a lead marketing person joining the board. She's more familiar with like Bloomberg and, Finance Trader and whatever, all those kind of journals that a lot of you kind of stock heads review. So she's pretty pulled up. I think we're waiting for the S1 to clear before we can go into that. I'm not too sure when she's joining, maybe next month. So that should hopefully give us a push in terms of the PR. We've also got a new social media manager joining soon, who's going to handle a lot of pushing more content out and stuff. I mean, I'm not really big on social media. Sure, it's a downfall. I get it, but we're trying to, resolve that. What else was there? Yeah, I think briefly before we go into questions, just something about the white paper. I'm reviewing section 4 now, which is a lot of the technical bits. Sections 1, 2, and 3 have been done by Frank. We sent some notes back. I mean, it's literally getting wrapped up right now. Mathew's give us a couple of good edits. So it's relatively soon, but again, it's not as amazing as, it's not like a key indicator or a key part of the timeline that a lot of you guys are expecting. There's way more information about the project out there. The main purpose of this document is to give to politicians, CEOs, people, senior or execs in Fortune 500 and stuff, departments in banks. That's the main reason for this, that we can give it out and hopefully steal some of the market share from a lot of these big finance players. One of the key parts of this Vemanti network that we're building is we can actually, so between the US and Vietnam, or anywhere on the network really, we're talking about 2 million transactions of various amounts, right? So one transaction could be $100, the next transaction could be $1 million, 2 million varying transactions for like less than $1, right? That's an extremely, extremely attractive product for a lot of banks. So that's why we're looking at Vietnam and Indonesia, the two very high remittance channels. There's a huge demand for these kind of products right now, especially ones that are regulated. The way that our product works, there's new laws that came into Indonesia on Monday. Well, today for you guys, yesterday for me. That basically settlement needs to be done in local currency. So we can do that because we're using USDV as a transfer of value. So we can apply with domestic laws here, especially in places like Bangladesh with very high capital constraints. So yeah, that's what we're really excited about. In terms of development of the actual product, we're basically speaking to PVcomBank now. We're mapping out the kind of who's responsible for what. We have a new contract being drawn up that allows us to basically build a team in cooperation with PVcomBank. So we're actually using PVcomBank engineers to consult our development, which is another thing that's pretty huge. We've got a couple of cool things that I did discuss in Slap the Ask, so you guys feel free to get a chance to go and check that out and let me know what you think. But the PVcomBank relationship is actually becoming on very strong, very strong. They're super eager for us to get involved and launch in Vietnam. So I'm really happy about that. Definitely makes everything 10 times easier. I'm pretty sure that's everything. Does anyone have any questions? Unfortunately, I can't actually read the phone right now. So if anyone's got any questions, please just feel free to shout it out. Take that as a no.
Hey Warren.
Hey, Brew.
Hey. So you kind of like touched on the PR, like, and how, you know, you guys are currently in the initial stages of launching that. Would you say, because I know that last time that there was mention of, you know, like a 12-month PR process, would you say that that's sort of like in the initial stages still, or have you guys kind of like begun to roll out some of these ideas, or just kind of like want to know like what necessarily is the status of that?
So basically the 1 year PR plan, that's going to begin when the kind of CMO, I'm not exactly too sure what her role will be defined as, but she's more experienced in corporate PR, you know, how to push products to Bloomberg and Financial Insider and those kind of journals. So we've got it mapped out in the form of these are the announcements that we'll make in terms of when the product launches. These are the partnerships that we'll announce. We've spoken to some of the blockchain networks that we're in cooperation with. We're more than happy to leverage their network. And some of these, you know, some of these communities are like 1 million plus. I mean, one of them is like a top 20. So, you know, it's definitely like maybe an 8-figure community size. But the only thing that they've said is we want to wait until the project's near deployment in Vietnam before they make an announcement, because they want to avoid making a PR announcement of a PR announcement to make a PR announcement, basically, which is, you know, completely fine. I understand, you know, probably a lot of people approach these guys with kind of a lot of air, and then they just kind of, you know, lose traction or something like that. But there's no way that we're losing traction. We're getting closer and closer to the goal. The relationship with PVcomBank is super strong. The things that things that we spoke about in the Ask, one of them was a credit line. So, you know, we're going to be able to basically users can deposit USDV and then they earn a credit line, which is going to be huge for people in Vietnam. You know, that's going to push transaction volume up massively. PVcomBank gets more users, we get more transaction volume. That's essentially what we're looking for, right? That and monetization. So the PR 12-month plan, when she comes in, she's basically going to be able to pull some leeway with a lot of these journals, and then essentially push the Vemanti product out there. But this isn't just about USDV. This PR applies to Vemanti as a whole. So in terms of the other projects, obviously I'm not that privy to, but I can tell you that it's basically outlined. You know, the exact content is kind of thrown in there. It might change, it might twiddle a little bit, but I wouldn't say it's in the beginning stages. It's definitely kind of mapped out, but it just starts when she comes in. I do believe she comes in before the end of the year. But in terms of when that PR is going to be announced, I'm not too sure. But yeah,
Okay,
it's not
that's
like
fine. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
wouldn't.
think that along with, excuse me, I think that along with the white paper is probably like, one of the more tangible deliverables that I think people are looking for. So something
Gotcha.
that we can kind of like share around, because obviously like internally like we're all enthusiastic about the project, but to have something tangible that we can share as a deliverable from the company, I think kind of like
Mm,
speaks to those that aren't necessarily engaged within the day to day that we kind of interface with you guys on. So
yeah,
I think that's, and I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I think, at least in my opinion, that's why there's so much focus around the white paper and why there's so much focus around PR, is just so that we
gotcha.
can kind of like have something that we can say that, hey, the company's gone through this. And I mean, Vemanti has gone through so much already, and it's been like an amazing accomplishment this year in my opinion. But I think tangible deliverables is always going to be better than not having them.
I can
So
get
that's
it
just my
frustrating.
opinion on things.
No, I get it. I really appreciate it. I can see the frustration from your guys' side, right? You don't see like the amazing phone calls we have each week. The progress that we make in terms of partnerships and large institutes getting interested in USDV. I can see it's frustrating because you guys don't have any insight into any of that. And it's frustrating for me because I wish I could just give you an update every day and be like, this is who we spoke to, yada yada. But then all it does in the end is damages things, and that's not what that's really what we're trying to avoid here. Um, the bureaucracy it takes to fill out like a K8 and a K1 and all these different documents just to announce something so small. Um, I mean, it's one of the reasons why people don't really want to get involved in the SEC. If you look at USDC, they're just announcing PR willy nilly. And then as someone else posted in the group about this fake PR that came out with Litecoin and Walmart and stuff, Walmart's going to get in trouble for that. Even though they weren't the ones that clearly released the PR, they're definitely the ones that are going to get in trouble. But how do they avoid something like that, right? So all we're trying to do is avoid any potential problems down the road. But with us already being SEC compliant, we're nowhere near on the radar of the SEC. They're going to be taking down a lot of the other players that have kind of operated without regulation for such a long time. We're just kind of going along, and we're just going to be snapping up market share as more of these projects back out. I mean, some of them are probably going to back out of the US. Some of them are probably just going to close down or rebrand. I mean, Ripple have rebranded as Spark or Flare. I think it's Flare Network, and they've rebranded Ripple as Spark token. So we're in a very, very good place right now. As the SEC clamps down on a lot of these projects, we're kind of sitting pretty. But I totally understand the frustration for you guys that you don't really have anything tangible for you to share. So we'll definitely work on trying to get this white paper out this month. Hopefully you guys can, that should be able to give you guys something to share out. If any of you want to make an account with the beta version of the platform, it's going to come out of beta once we get the Vietnam side live. So feel free to make an account and then, let us know what you think on that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions, guys? Feel free, open platform, jump right in.
Hey, Warren. So I just heard you said the beta is going to come live once you guys figure out what's going on the Vietnam side. Do you have any idea, like, if you had to put like a time frame on that when that would happen?
I mean, it's not so much when we figure it out, it's just when we go live. We know what needs to be done. Luckily, we've got the support of the blockchain, the multiple blockchain networks. In terms of the technical side, we're actually speaking to 2 providers to ramp up the service production. One of them is based in Singapore. They're quite experienced in connecting banking APIs and kind of like blockchain protocols. One of the things that we need to do is essentially figure out how to fire a webhook from the user, pull it from a banking API, and then figure out the conversion between. I mean, there's multiple strategies that we've got, but hopefully these guys will say, this is the best path forward, really. One of the things with Vietnam is, they're really susceptible to new tech, and the regulation kind of favors blockchain, but at the same time, no one's really done it before. So we've got like 3 or 4 different methods ahead of us, and we'll speak to this one Singapore company to hopefully map out the best route for us. So they should be able to speed up development. We've also got another company, I think they're based in the US, that basically has parts of an ecosystem available for sale. I mean, it's similar to the DEX. So we were speaking about a multi-DEX, which is basically a regulated, decentralized exchange with parts of a centralized exchange. So this allows us to basically market securities to a wider audience in a compliant manner. So if you look at the attraction that Uniswap's managed to garner, you know, we hope to replicate that with a regulated FINRA registered partner. Another thing that, you know, they've got a couple of good different technical providers, technical service providers, like wallets. You know, we can't actually get involved in a fully decentralized exchange, but there are parts of a decentralized exchange that we can. You know, I mean, this is just one of the kind of problems we have with being SEC registered, that we just have to kind of keep marching forward on a very tight rope. So in terms of, I mean, we'd love to get this out before the end of the year. I mean, realistically, I probably anticipate Q1. But in terms of like testing, I would say probably this year, before the end of this year.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I'm always cautious about trying to give deadlines, because then if we do miss them, then you guys obviously get upset at me, which is understandable. But this is one of the reasons why we're looking at service providers, just to kind of speed up this kind of deployment. So yeah, if everything goes well before the end of the year, realistically, maybe Q1.
So another thing I noticed is that you mentioned there's a new social media person coming in. Is
Mhm.
Connie still with Vemanti or no?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think she's moved away from USDV. She might be working on some other Vemanti projects, but I'll probably sync up with her this week and get the full scoop.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
The social media person is just a very rather junior level. It's just really to help us maintain and to post more information out on socials. So it's nothing. It's not like an exciting role. Just more of a brief update for you guys.
Okay, makes sense. And I was wondering, like, since I guess you like to talk about how, you know, there's things going on with Vemanti and there's things going on with USDV. Almost if USDV should have its own social media accounts,
Yeah.
on Twitter and things like that, to just really separate the two entities.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Feel free, jump in, open platform. You know, you want to air some grievances, you know, you want to shout at me, perfectly fine. Feel free. Now's your chance. My favorite color used to be red. Now it's leaning towards more gray. If that's interesting. I actually can't read that my phone's charging on the other side, inside the house, unfortunately. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to please jump on chat. Give us a shout.
Yeah, I got a quick question for you there.
Sure, bro.
Are we looking at next year before we actually get launched? Early next year, maybe?
For the Vietnam side, I mean, the US side now is still operational. You can still go on, make an account, and use it for kind of US-based transactions, P2P, etc. You can also purchase a handful of cryptocurrencies there compliantly. So you can still use the US side, but the Vietnamese side is, yeah, we anticipate that to come out later on.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, mate, was there any follow-up to that?
No, that's good. Next year sounds good.
No worries, no worries.
I'm patient.
Yeah, yeah. I really appreciate a lot of you guys' patience on this. We're not falling behind or anything. There's no concern from any of the team here that we're kind of slacking or anything. The PVcomBank partnership was kind of huge for us. And Tan led that negotiation, leveraging his network. And they're super eager to work with us. So the fact that we actually have a partnership with a bank on the ground in Vietnam, there's so many financial tools that we're going to be deploying in Vietnam next year. It really is phenomenal. But the key really is monetization, right? It's great to have these partnerships and stuff, but the monetization comes in from the products that we're deploying. So we are working on these in the background. Obviously, a lot of this depends on the remittance that we're kind of deploying. But we're super excited to kind of be the first to steal a large market share in Vietnam. And then what we're aiming to do is replicate that model in different regions. So one of the things that I'm doing while I'm in Indonesia is speaking to a couple of capital firms, banking partners, payment systems, to hopefully integrate USDV into a lot of these. What we're really focusing on with USDV is essentially offshore transactions. So while the USDC, they're still having trouble getting a banking charter now. And say, for example, they succeed, they're not going to be able to do everything that they have right now. You've also got other projects out there. USDT isn't even worth discussing about. You've got other projects like UST, which seem to be having a good market share. But at the same time, it's not backed by anything real or solid or compliant. And then these other large stablecoins, they're only, we're 1.8 for every $1 in the reserve. At best times, we're going to have $1.80 in the reserve. At the worst times, we're always going to be 1-to-1. That's always our model. That's what we anticipate the regulation coming in. When Tan spoke to an SEC rep, one of the first questions they were asking was, is everything going to be 1-to-1 back? That seems to be one of the key indicators for stablecoin compliance. Everything has to be 1-to-1. One of the biggest concerns they have with USDT, for example, is that it is less than 3% back. So we're anticipating a lot of the regulatory requirements, and we're matching them, and even in some cases going above and beyond to make sure. So we've got no concern about compliance moving in the future. We know that we're going to be around for a long time. But obviously monetization is the key, and a lot of these are going to come from these offshore transactions, remittance payments, etc. And a lot of these interest generating products we distribute through different partners. One of the things that we can't do, as we initially thought, was distribute the interest ourselves. But we have some workarounds, working with some third parties to support us in distributing the yields. If you look at Celsius, for example, we're going to be able to subsidize a lot of the USDV staking on that, and then we can just distribute the rewards to Celsius, and then Celsius can distribute to their users. So we've got some good strategies. Because again, we don't want to work around compliance. We kind of want to work through compliance. But we've got some good products, man. Opening a credit line in Vietnam, there's just zero credit card adoption in Vietnam. One of them is people being that they don't trust banks, but they are in favor of private entities, which is rather strange. So someone like Vemanti coming in, offering all these different financial services, being a US registered and compliant company, we've done a couple of focus groups, and the adoption seems to be very high. So we've got some fantastic growth looking at Vietnam. And then we anticipate the same level of growth in Indonesia, and then eventually Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, etc. And then we'll be branching out, looking at Malaysia and those kind of areas. But for now, directly on the roadmap is Vietnam and then Indonesia.
So would you consider us to be, I guess, the first one to complete being regulated and the whole work, the whole 9 yards been done? Would you say we're number one ahead of everyone else?
Yeah. So when Tan had a conversation with the SEC rep, he kind of deduced from a lot of their questions how the regulatory framework is being made. So anything that's not a stable coin, they're going to try and argue that it's a security, no matter what it is, no matter what the use case is. They're going to argue that if someone has purchased it and it's risen in value, it's security. For the stable coins, they're anticipating it's always at minimum 1-to-1 back, right? Because when these, so basically with a 3% or less than 3% back stable coin, the reason that they can kind of cheat the system is they go to a lot of these exchanges or service providers and they just dump millions of stable coins on them, right? That's how they got through rapid growth. But for us, it's a bit different because if we send them 1 million tokens, we are literally giving them $1 million. And what it means is that we're grossly overpaying for a lot of services that just shouldn't happen. Like if an exchange says, okay, you need to pay us 500K, then you need to give us like another 500K per order book side. And then if you want 5 or 6 pairings, you're getting into like an 8-figure number, which is just ridiculous. So what we're trying to speak to these exchanges and say, look, we are a compliant stablecoin. If you work with us, you shouldn't have to worry about us being regarded as a security, or there shouldn't be any compliance risk on your side. So that's kind of the sticky situation that we're in now. So once we have more, so we've kind of pulled away from focusing on the exchanges. We can't really get involved with decentralized exchanges for a variety of reasons according to legal counsel. So the next step of distribution is basically just to have a third-party partner and then have them manage the distribution in different regions. So rather than just go dump, 5 or 6 mil on an exchange, we're looking to work with distribution partners that can just list USDV as an option to buy, basically. So the same way in the USDV account now, where you can buy Bitcoin or Ethereum or something, we hope to have USDV listed in that kind of buy window. The same way that we're looking for these kind of partners in Vietnam and Indonesia and stuff, just to have it easily obtainable. But then obviously once we launch in Vietnam, it's going to be a native currency to a lot of these transactions in partnership with PVcomBank. So rather than PVcomBank offering USD, they're going to be offering USDV just for ease of use. So, in my that's huge, not just for Vemanti, but for the blockchain industry, So I can anticipate a lot of journalists getting more interested once they learn more about, the first that we're putting out, the amount of effort that we've got to get this far. So I think that's when a lot of journalists are going to be interested. I mean, a lot of them just care about the narrative these days, the story that sells, clickbait and stuff like that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I just wish I could give you guys update, daily on what we're achieving. Obviously in the crypto scene, it's much easier to distribute information. But working with a public company, there's so much paperwork involved. It kind of defeats the object of trying to release information, because then what you end up doing is, you're just kind of bogging yourself down with news that's being announced. So we want to try and keep the good PR for this 12-month PR strategy. And I know some of you are anticipating Tan's kind of quiet period, but that's what the legal counsel have told. They've not steered us wrong so far. So I just kind of hold on. I mean, there is a reason for it, right? But yeah. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, I do have 2 quick ones. The first one, you may have touched on it. I was a little bit late joining, but are the white papers still, set for September or early October?
Yeah, very much so. We're literally on section 4. So there's 5 sections that Frank's been writing. We wrapped up 1, 2, and 3 last week. We're working on section 4 now. So me and Mathew are going over a lot of the technicals, just kind of getting them down onto paper. Section 5 is the conclusion that Frank's writing. So yeah, I mean, I do believe, there's a very good chance it still could be out in September, at the latest, early October. But yeah, I mean, it's literally very, very soon, and it's 1 million times better than the first one we got. The first one we got seemed more like an article than a white paper, but the language in this one is much more academic, and you know, when you're going after politicians and stuff, that's kind of how you want it to read.
Okay. And just the second, I think you may have just kind of touched on it right before this, but I've noticed Tan is tweeting a little more here lately. Is his quiet period over? Is the S1 completed, or what?
I don't believe so. I think he's just got a bit tired of being quiet, to be honest. I mean, Tan's a very chatty guy. I think he doesn't want to let a lot of you guys down. So I think he's just kind of slowly trying to break out of the quiet period. As far as I'm aware, it's not over. It might have changed. I'm not too sure, but I can sync up with him and double check on that. But at this moment in time, I just believe that he's trying to be a bit more active.
Thank you.
Any other questions, guys? Open format, jump in. No?
I got one more quick question, Warren.
Sure, bro.
Yeah, do you think it could be assumed that as more partners enter the ecosystem, the yield generated by USDV would increase?
You mean the yield amount? Like
Yeah,
the interest amount?
Yeah, the interest amount, as in like more partners, does that lead to higher interest?
I wouldn't say it leads to a higher interest. I think it's just more of a distribution type. Because obviously we can only use the funds in one way. You know, we can't use the same funds in like 3 or 4 investments, for example. So I wouldn't say that the interest yield increases. What's most likely going to happen is we are going to subsidize interest generated on different partners. So for Celsius, for example, if they're offering, you know, less than 5% for other stable coins, and then we come along and say, you know, we'll use that 5% and we'll give you an extra 10% from elsewhere in the reserve interest. You know, users could be looking at like a 15% interest or 20% or something, depending on the platform. So, I mean, technically, yes, I could say, you know, if more ecosystem partners join, the interest goes up, but it kind of depends on the ecosystem partner. Like PVcomBank, for example, they are an ecosystem partner, but they're more focused on the payments and distribution side. So we're going to be able to put, you know, USDV in the hands of millions of Vietnamese people that are looking to use USD in various ways. A lot of people in Vietnam hold USD instead of VND. They don't hold it in the bank, they hold it at home in these huge safes. It's very common for people to do that. I mean, when I was renting, you know, 4 out of 5 houses would have a safe kind of built into the house, very large safe built into the house. A lot of people keep gold under mattresses and stuff like that. Obviously, this is, you know, kind of historically relevant. But people just don't seem to trust banks there. People seem to trust private entities a lot more, like Pay and a lot of these digital banks. You know, they're kind of skyrocketing over there. So what we're doing in PVcomBank is essentially issuing the digital side of a lot of their payments and stuff. So it makes PVcomBank more attractive to users on the ground, gives them a way to hold USD quite compliantly. And then in the end, you know, we get transactional volume and payments from users, essentially, you know, which is pretty important. So it's safe to say that, you know, all PVcomBank users or, you know, account holders will essentially become USDV holders. So that's just going to skyrocket our user base.
Hey Warren, quick question. I've been to Vietnam quite a bit. I was kind of curious. Are you guys talking to like grocery stores, like kind of like A Smart or Circle K, to see if they're willing to take USDV in the future?
So we're not, but we're more looking at things like Pay, Zalo Pay. So we're not targeting the retail stores, we're targeting the payment method. We've actually had some good conversations with some. Once the PVcomBank, you know, partnership kind of is 100% official in terms of we have the products out there operating, they're more than happy to pick up that conversation again. Right now, you know, we're just kind of a foreign entity. So once we have the product deployed on the ground, that's when we're going to have these kind of payment and PSPs coming back to us and saying, okay, now let's talk properly. So yeah, no, we're not targeting the retail stores. We're targeting the PSPs and the payment methods, which is pretty cool, to be honest.
But, thanks, Owen. I appreciate the response.
No worries, but you said you're in Vietnam. Whereabouts are you?
Oh no, I'm actually right now. I'm supposed to be going to Vietnam, but I've been stuck in the States for about 2 years now. Vietnam's in
Yeah,
full lockdown. Yeah, I have family over there, so I
yeah.
definitely agree with your statement about them holding cash. Most of the time, if you have relatives in Vietnam, you send them cash, or what they'll do is they'll take the cash and they'll buy gold with it. And again, you're 100% right. They'll just keep a bunch of gold in the house.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, sorry to hear that, mate. I hope things open up pretty soon. I'm eager to get back, to be honest.
Warren, I was just listening back earlier today, the interview that we did for Slap the Ask, and I think you mentioned something about Visa and MasterCard. I
Yep.
didn't really follow up with it, but could you, I guess, explain what you were talking about when you mentioned those two companies?
Honestly, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was more about a use case of, our payment rails are very attractive to Visa and MasterCard. 2 million transactions of various amounts. One transaction could be $100, another transaction could be $1 million, right? But that still counts as 2 transactions. So 1 million transactions for less than $1 is, quite phenomenal. So someone like Visa and MasterCard would be, should be jumping all over this. Once we prove the use case between the US and Vietnam, we're very confident that a lot of these kind of fintech rails are going to come to us, even transfer-wise, right? We spoke to like N26 and some other kind of European neobanks to basically say, look, we have these fantastic rails that we can emulate. You guys don't have to be subject to managing a bunch of different Forex pools, in different countries. Because obviously Vemanti has different investments in Vietnam. So for us, having a large VND side is not an issue because, Vemanti can kind of absolve that and eat the cost of that Forex pool to distribute their funds in Vietnam. So our payment rails that we've built in cooperation with these blockchain protocols are, absolutely phenomenal. Once we have the PVcomBank kind of approve it and start using it, it's very, very easy for us to go to other banks and say, look, we're already doing this with PVcomBank. We've got a bank in Indonesia lined up. Why don't you guys just jump on board and start sharing this network, and then the network in turn grows and everybody profits from it. So I think that's what I was touching at with the Visa and MasterCard comment.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions, guys?
I guess I'll ask another question. I think this is like way back in the day at this point, when you first kind of joined. I remember you mentioned something about like creating a fund to like for social impact funds, something about like helping like female entrepreneurs or helping African farmers, things like that.
Yeah.
Is that sort of on the back burner now?
It's more of a later stage. Yeah, it's more of a later stage kind of ecosystem plan. It was more of a way of once we can prove that we can generate interest compliantly for people, offer high interest savings and stuff. Maybe giving people the option of social impact funds, would be very beneficial. There's another blockchain protocol that's launched a kind of women-focused payments network that we were speaking to. This is quite recently, like a month or two ago. So for us, it was something interesting that we were speaking to. But unfortunately, the first step for us is the monetization. Once we have the monetization, then we can do some, cool stuff with social impact and stuff. So I wouldn't say it's on the back burner. It's just not really. It's not really at this stage of the kind of long-term plan. The first case is monetization for sure.
Cool. Thank you.
No worries, guys. I actually have another call in 10 minutes. So if there's any other questions, feel free to jump on now. Alrighty. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to tag me in the Telegram group. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, guys. Much appreciated. If I don't respond in DMs or on the tag, just don't forget to tag me. I do get around to reading the messages, I promise you. But thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Warren.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Cheers, guys. Adios.
Thanks, man.